Alex wiped the sweat from his forehead as the hum of the ship's engine echoed in the cargo bay. He had been fixing a faulty panel for the last 2 hours, his hands covered in grease. Lyra stood nearby, leaning against a crate, her bright golden eyes watching him closely. She had a habit of staring like that, as if she was studying every movement. "You humans are so slow," she teased, her voice carrying a playful tone. Her furred ears twitched, and the tip of her tail flicked from side to side. Alex smirked without looking up. "And yet I'm the one fixing your ship while you just stand there." She stepped closer, crouching next to him. "Maybe I'm making sure you don't break anything." "Oh, I never break anything," he said. "I improve it." Her smile widened, showing small, sharp teeth. "Is that so?" Before Alex could reply, Lyra suddenly leaned forward and sank her teeth into the back of his hand. Not hard enough to draw blood, but enough for him to feel it. "Ouch!" he exclaimed, pulling his hand back and looking at her in surprise. "What the hell was that for?" Lyra only laughed, her tail curling around her leg. "Just playing." He shook his head, chuckling. "You're lucky I don't report you for alien assault." "I'm lucky for many things," she said softly, stay, her tone changing for a brief moment before she turned and walked toward the storage shelves. Alex rubbed the spot she bit. It didn't hurt much, but it tingled strangely, almost like static. He figured it was just her alien saliva reacting with his skin. A few other crew members walked past. Two of them, a tall insectoid and a scaled alien with narrow eyes, paused and glanced at Alex's hand. Their expressions shifted in an instant from casual to shocked. One of them muttered in their own language before walking off quickly. The other stayed just long enough to give Alex an unreadable look, then followed. Alex frowned. "What was that about?" Lyra didn't answer. She busied herself with sorting tools, her back turned to him. The ship's captain, a gruff reptilian male named Varrock, entered the bay to check the repairs. His eyes went to Alex, then to Lyra, and then to Alex's hand. His tail stiffened, and he gave a low growl. "Did she bite you?" Varrock asked. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, but it was just a joke." The captain stepped closer, his voice low and serious. "Do you have any idea what you've just agreed to?" Alex blinked in confusion. "Agreed to? I didn't agree to anything. She bit me." Varrock's gaze moved between them. "In her culture, that is no small thing. You should—" "Captain," Lyra interrupted sharply, turning to face him. "It's nothing." Varrock's eyes narrowed, clearly unconvinced, but he said nothing more. He only gave Alex a long, unreadable look before leaving the bay. Alex let out a breath, trying to shake off the weird tension. "Okay, what's going on? Why is everyone acting like I signed a contract?" Lyra hesitated, then grabbed a datapad and pretended to read. "You wouldn't understand. Try me," he said, stepping closer. Her ears flattened slightly and she avoided his eyes. "Just forget it, Alex." He studied her for a moment. The playful energy from earlier was gone, replaced by something cautious, maybe even nervous. He decided to let it go for now, though the strange tingling in his hand hadn't faded. It was stronger now, a faint warmth that seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. That night, as Alex walked down the narrow corridor toward his cabin, the ship felt unusually quiet. Crew members avoided him in the halls, some nodding politely, others glancing away quickly. Inside his cabin, he sat on his bed and examined his hand. In the center of the bite mark, faint lines of light traced a small pattern, like a glowing tattoo. It shimmered when he moved his fingers. He muttered to himself, "What the hell is this?" Before he could think further, a knock came at his door. He opened it to find Lyra standing there, her eyes wide and alert. "Pack your things," she said in a low voice. "What? Why?" Her tail flicked nervously. "We have to hide before they come." "Who's they?" Alex asked, but Lyra stepped inside and shut the door behind her. "They'll be here soon," she whispered, "and if they find you, they'll kill you." Alex stared at her, still holding the small bag she had shoved into his hands. "You're not making any sense. Who's coming? Why would anyone want to kill me?" Lyra's ears twitched, and she kept glancing toward the door as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. "Because you wear the mark now," she said, "and they will never let a human keep it." He looked at his hand again, the strange glowing lines pulsing faintly in the dim light of the cabin. "This is just from your bite, right? It'll fade in a day or two." She shook her head quickly. "No, it's not just a bite, it's a claim. My people call it the bond mark. Once it's made, it cannot be undone unless one of us dies." Alex frowned. "A claim? Like marriage? Lyra's eyes met his for a moment before darting away. Something like that, only stronger. It means you're mine and I'm yours, by law. He laughed, half in disbelief. Okay, that's ridiculous. I didn't agree to anything. I didn't even know about this. You didn't have to agree, she said quietly. The act itself is binding, and now my clan will come for you. Alex set the bag down. So what's the big problem? If this is just a cultural thing, I can tell them it was a misunderstanding. Her tail lashed once, sharp and angry. They won't care. In my clan's eyes, you challenged every male who ever wanted me. They'll demand you prove you're worthy, and if you fail, they'll kill you. And me. He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. So you're saying your people are basically a pack of duel-loving lunatics? She almost smiled, but it didn't last. You don't understand the old laws. They are not just tradition. They are survival. My father is the leader of one of the strongest warrior clans in the sector. If word spreads that I bonded with a human, he will see it as an insult to the entire bloodline. A faint vibration passed through the floor, and the cabin lights flickered once. Lyra's ears shot up. They're here. Alex moved to the small window and looked out. The station's docking ring was visible, and on the far side, a large angular ship had just locked into place. Its hull was marked with deep crimson symbols, glowing faintly like molten metal. Even from a distance, Alex could tell it wasn't a friendly arrival. Lyra pulled a hood over her head. We have minutes, maybe less. If they see you before I can speak to them, they'll attack. Speak to them? You just said they'd kill me. She hesitated, her voice almost breaking. I have to try. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, heavy, metallic, and in perfect sync. Whoever it was moved with military precision. Alex grabbed his tool belt and strapped it on. Fine, but if this goes bad, we run. Lyra didn't argue. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway, keeping her head low. Alex followed, his eyes scanning every corner. They didn't get far before a group of armored figures turned the corner ahead of them. They were tall, broad, and carried long-bladed weapons strapped to their backs. Their armor was black and silver, with the same crimson symbols Alex had seen on the ship. The one in front stopped and stared at Alex's hand. His eyes narrowed, and he barked something in a deep, guttural language. Lyra stepped forward quickly, speaking in the same tongue. Her voice was firm but rushed, her tone almost pleading. The leader's gaze didn't soften. He took a step toward Alex, his hand drifting to the hilt of his weapon. Alex raised his hand slowly. Look, whatever this is, I didn't. The alien interrupted with a low growl and spoke in broken English. You bear the mark. You took her from us. You will face the trials. Alex glanced at Lyra. Trials? That doesn't sound good. They won't listen, she whispered. You're already in it. Two of the armored warriors stepped forward, flanking Alex on both sides. The leader gestured toward the docking bay. Come. The first test begins now. Alex looked at Lyra, trying to read her expression. There was fear there, but also something else, determination. As they walked, Alex's mind raced. He had fixed engines in vacuum, survived reactor leaks, and once fought off a pirate boarding party with nothing but a wrench. But whatever trials meant, it wasn't going to involve anything he knew how to do. The path led them into the massive station arena, where the floor was made of black stone carved with ancient runes. Above them, thousands of alien faces filled the seats, watching in silence. Lyra's voice came to him in a low murmur. Don't fight like them. Fight like you. The leader stepped aside, leaving Alex standing alone in the center. From the opposite gate, a massive figure emerged, a reptilian warrior, taller than any human, carrying a spear that crackled with blue energy. The crowd began to roar. Alex felt the glowing mark on his hand burn hotter. He had no idea if it was from fear or whatever strange bond it represented. The gate behind him slammed shut. The reptilian warrior lowered his spear and charged. The reptilian warrior's footsteps pounded against the arena floor, each one shaking the ground beneath Alex's boots. The spear's blue energy hissed, leaving faint trails of light in the air. Alex's first instinct was to run, but there was nowhere to go. The arena walls rose high, smooth and unbroken. The warrior swung the spear in a wide arc. Alex ducked, feeling the heat of the energy pass inches above his head. The crowd shouted in approval, their voices a wall of noise. Alex's mind raced. He had no armor, no weapon, and no combat training for this kind of fight. The only thing he had was his tool belt, still strapped to his waist. His fingers brushed over a small plasma cutter, a coil of wire, and a handful of metal clips. None of it was meant for fighting, but it was all he had. The warrior lunged again, the spear stabbing toward Alex's chest. Alex sidestepped, catching the shaft of the weapon with one hand and using the other to yank a metal clip from his belt. He jammed it into the spear's energy emitter. Sparks flew, and the weapon's glow flickered. The reptilian snarled and yanked the spear back, tearing the clip loose. Alex backed away, trying to keep distance. His eyes scanned the arena floor, cracks in the stone, loose fragments, anything he could use. He spotted a chunk of broken stone near the wall and darted toward it. The warrior chased him, swinging the spear down in a crushing blow. Alex rolled aside just in time, the weapon smashing into the ground and sending shards of black stone into the air. Alex grabbed the stone chunk and hurled it at the warrior's head. It struck the side of his helmet with a loud crack, making him stumble for a second. The crowd roared louder, some cheering for the warrior, others for Alex. Alex pulled the plasma cutter from his belt and ignited it. The small tool's bright white flame looked pitiful compared to the warrior's massive spear, but it gave Alex an idea. When the warrior charged again, Alex didn't run. He stepped forward, ducking under the spear and slicing through the leather straps on the warrior's chest armor. The plates shifted and loosened. The warrior swung his clawed hand at Alex's head, but Alex dropped to the ground and rolled between his legs. The mark on his hand burned hotter, almost like it was pushing him forward. Lyra's voice echoed in his mind from earlier. "Don't fight like them. Fight like you." The reptilian turned, clearly angry now, his tail lashing behind him. He gripped the spear with both hands and charged for a final strike. Alex sprinted toward the far wall, baiting the warrior to follow. At the last second, Alex stopped short and ducked. The warrior's momentum carried him forward, the spear stabbing into the wall and lodging deep into the stone. Before the reptilian could pull it free, Alex wrapped his coil of wire around the weapon shaft and activated the cutter. The wire heated instantly, slicing into the spear and shorting its energy core. The weapon sparked violently, then exploded in a flash of blue light. The blast threw both of them back. Alex hit the ground hard, his breath knocked out of him. Across the arena, the warrior groaned, his armor smoking and his weapon shattered. The arena fell silent for a moment. Then the crowd erupted into deafening cheers. Alex struggled to his feet, every muscle aching. The warrior, still alive but defeated, pounded his fist against the ground 3 times, a gesture of surrender. The leader of the armored group stepped into the arena, his expression unreadable. "You survived the first trial," he said in his deep, accented voice, "but strength is not all that is tested." 2 guards approached and took Alex by the arms, guiding him toward a dark archway at the side of the arena. Lyra appeared there, her hood pulled low, but her golden eyes shone with relief. "You're still breathing," she said softly. "Barely," Alex replied, rubbing the ache in his ribs. "What's next? Let me guess. Trial number 2 is wrestling a starship?" Her tail flicked, though her face stayed serious. "The next one is worse. It's not about fighting, it's about loyalty." They walked through winding corridors until they reached a chamber lit only by a central beam of white light. At one end stood a tall door, and at the other was Lyra, her wrists bound with thin metal cuffs. The leader stepped forward. "2 doors will open. One leads to your freedom. The other binds you to her clan forever. Choose wrong and one of you dies." Alex looked between the leader and Lyra. "And I'm supposed to just guess?" The leader's eyes narrowed. "The trial is not in the choice itself. The trial is in your heart." The sound of heavy gears turning echoed through the chamber as the 2 massive doors began to open. One revealed a long, bright corridor. The other showed only darkness. Lyra's voice was barely above a whisper. "Alex, please." He looked at her, the glowing mark on his hand pulsing faster, and stepped forward without hesitation. Alex walked past the bright corridor without even glancing inside. His steps carried him straight toward the dark doorway where Lyra stood. The shadows beyond it seemed thick, almost alive. But he didn't slow down. The leader's voice echoed through the chamber. "You choose the bond over freedom?" Alex didn't look back. "I'm not leaving her here." A low murmur rippled through the guards. Lyra's eyes widened, and for a brief moment, her usual guarded expression softened into something vulnerable. As Alex reached her, the cuffs around her wrists snapped open on their own, the metal melting away in nothing. The moment her hands were free, the glowing mark on Alex's hand flared so brightly it lit the entire room. The pulse of the light matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. The leader stepped forward, studying Alex carefully. You passed the second trial, but the bond is now sealed stronger than before. The next step will decide if you live or die. Before Alex could reply, the floor beneath them shifted. The dark doorway closed behind him, and the chamber's walls moved outward, revealing a wide circular space surrounded by alien spectators. This wasn't the arena from before. It was smaller, quieter, more intimate, but the air felt heavier. From the far side, a massive figure entered. His armor was a deep crimson, carved with golden patterns. His horns curved forward, his shoulders broad enough to fill the doorway. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. "Father," she whispered. The alien king's gaze moved from his daughter to Alex. His eyes were sharp, cold, and calculating. "This is the human who bears your mark?" Lyra stepped forward. "Yes." The king's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Fragile bones, weak frame, no claws, no honor in battle, and yet you choose him?" She held her ground. "Yes." The king turned his attention fully to Alex. "If you wish to keep what you have claimed, you will face the death field. You will go in unarmed. You will bring back the Heartstone. If you fail, your body will feed the sands." The crowd murmured with excitement. Alex could feel dozens of eyes on him. He swallowed hard. "All right, but what exactly is a death field?" The king smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "You will learn." Two guards escorted Alex to a massive gate at the edge of the chamber. The metal doors slid open, and a hot wave of wind blasted his face. The death field stretched out before him, an endless expanse of jagged black rocks, glowing pits of molten sand, and twisted, thorn-covered plants that hissed when the wind blew over them. In the far distance, a faint red glow marked where the Heartstone supposedly lay. The gate slammed shut behind him. Alex took a deep breath and started moving, careful where he stepped. The ground was unstable, and every few feet, the stone crumbled under his weight. He had no weapon, no tools, just his hands and whatever he could scavenge. The first threat came quickly. A low growl echoed from his left, and a creature emerged from between two rock spires. It was the size of a wolf, but covered in black, scale-like armor. Its eyes glowed yellow, and its long tail ended in a spiked club. Alex froze as it stalked toward him. He spotted a cluster of thorned plants nearby and got an idea. He backed up slowly, luring the beast toward the plants. When it lunged, he dove aside. The creature slammed into the thorny vines, and they wrapped around its body like living ropes. It thrashed, but the plants tightened, pulling it to the ground. Breathing hard, Alex kept moving. The heat was getting worse. His throat was dry, and sweat dripped into his eyes. He had to climb over a ridge of sharp stone, each step cutting into his boots. Halfway up, he heard the sound of rushing air. A shadow passed over him, and he looked up to see a massive winged predator diving straight at him. Its beak glinted like metal, and its talons were spread wide. Alex threw himself flat against the rock. The creature's claws scraped over him, tearing a chunk of stone from the ridge. He grabbed the loose rock and hurled it at the beast as it circled back. The stone struck its wing joint, making it shriek and veer off. By the time he reached the far end of the ridge, his legs were shaking. The red glow was closer now. The Heartstone rested on a pedestal of black glass in the middle of a wide open pit. The air shimmered with heat, and the sand at the bottom glowed faintly orange. Alex slid down carefully, his boots sinking into the hot sand. The moment he touched the pedestal, the ground began to tremble. The sand around him shifted, forming the outline of a massive buried creature. Two glowing eyes opened beneath the surface. Without thinking, Alex grabbed the Heartstone. It was warm, almost alive, and sprinted for the other side of the pit. The creature lunged from the sand, its enormous jaws snapping shut inches from his leg. He scrambled up the far wall, clutching the stone to his chest. Behind him, the creature roared, but it didn't follow beyond the pit's edge. When Alex finally staggered back through the death field's gate, the crowd erupted in cheers. He dropped to his knees, panting, the Heartstone still in his hands. The alien king stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the human. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he reached out and took the stone, examining it carefully. "You are still alive," the king said. "Perhaps you are not as weak as you look." The king turned the heartstone over in his hand, the crimson glow reflecting in his eyes. The crowd had gone quiet, waiting for his judgment. Lyra stood at the edge of the platform, her fists clenched, every muscle in her body tense. Alex kept his breathing steady, though his legs felt like they could give out at any second. His clothes were torn, his skin burned from the heat of the death field, but he refused to look away from the king. Finally, the king placed the heartstone back into Alex's hands. "You carried it through the sands," he said slowly. "You faced the beasts and the fire. Few warriors return from the death field. Fewer still return without a weapon." Alex gave a small shrug. "Guess I didn't know I was supposed to die out there." A few of the watching warriors chuckled under their breath, but the king did not smile. Instead, he stepped closer, towering over the human. "You have passed 2 trials of strength and 1 of loyalty, but there is 1 test left. This will decide if you are worthy to stand beside my daughter." Alex glanced at Lyra. "I thought that was what we were doing this whole time." "This is different," the king said. "Strength and loyalty mean nothing without honor. You will prove yours tonight." Guards stepped forward, leading Alex and Lyra to a large ceremonial hall. Massive pillars, carved with ancient symbols, lined the walls, and in the center was a circular platform with a shallow pool of clear water around it. The king addressed the gathered warriors. "The bond mark ties 2 souls together, but it can be broken if the bonded one is offered freedom and chooses to take it." Alex felt Lyra's eyes on him, but she said nothing. The king gestured, and 2 doors opened on opposite sides of the hall. Through one, Alex saw a corridor that led back toward the docking bays, his way out. Through the other was a smaller chamber with a glowing blue crystal suspended above a stone altar. The king's voice filled the hall. "One door will break the bond and free you both. The other will bind you to her forever, making you part of our clan. Once you choose, there is no return." Alex looked from the doors to Lyra. "You didn't tell me this was possible," her tail twitched nervously. "Because I didn't want you to think about leaving." The king folded his arms. "If you choose freedom, you walk away with your life. No one will hunt you, but you will never see her again." The hall was silent, every warrior watching closely. Alex took a deep breath, his gaze lingering on the door to freedom. It was the logical choice. No more fights, no more strange alien laws, no more danger. He could go back to his old life. Then he looked at Lyra. Her golden eyes weren't pleading, but there was a quiet sadness there, a fear she wouldn't voice. She wasn't begging him to stay. She was preparing herself for him to go. Alex stepped toward the smaller chamber. The moment he crossed the threshold, the glowing mark on his hand flared to life, casting a bright light across the walls. The crystal above the altar pulsed in time with the mark, and a faint hum filled the air. He reached out and touched the crystal. A warm rush of energy flooded his arm, spreading through his chest. Behind him, he heard the sound of many voices murmuring in surprise. The crystal vanished in a flash, and the mark on his hand changed, its lines sharper, brighter, as if freshly carved. The king's voice was low, but it carried across the hall. "The bond is sealed. He has chosen his place among us." Lyra stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You didn't even hesitate." Alex smiled faintly. "I already chose back in the corridor during the loyalty test. This just made it official." For the first time since the trials began, the king allowed himself a small nod of respect. "Then you are no longer an outsider. You are blood-bound to my daughter, and no one may challenge that without facing me." The crowd gave a deep, unified roar of approval. Later, when the hall had emptied, Lyra and Alex walked side by side toward the guest quarters assigned to him. Late, the tension in her shoulders had eased, but she still kept stealing glances at him. "You know this changes everything," she said quietly. "Yeah," he replied. "Guess I'm stuck with you now." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "You think you're stuck? You're the one who has no idea what comes next." They reached the doorway to his quarters. Before stepping inside, Alex looked down at the glowing mark on his hand. It felt warm, alive, almost like it was pulsing with Lyra's heartbeat instead of his own. Something told him that while the trials were over, the real challenge was only beginning. The next morning, Alex woke to the sound of distant drums. The steady, deep rhythm echoed through the walls of his quarters, shaking the air with each beat. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and saw Lyra standing by the door, dressed in ceremonial armor made of dark leather and silver plates. Her golden eyes were sharp, and her tail flicked with restless energy. "You need to get dressed," she said. "My father has called for you." Alex swung his legs off the bed. "I thought the trials were over." "They are," she said, fastening the straps on her armor. "But this is something else. The council will want to see you, and some of them will not be pleased that a human now carries the bond mark." "That sounds encouraging," he muttered, pulling on the clean clothes someone had left for him. Dark fabric with simple silver trim, far fancier than anything he was used to wearing. Lyra led him through long stone corridors lit by hanging lanterns. The drums grew louder until they entered a massive chamber filled with towering alien figures. Each wore a cloak marked with their clan's symbol, and each one turned to stare at Alex as he stepped inside. At the far end of the hall sat the king, resting his hands on the arms of an ornate throne. His gaze was unreadable. To his left stood a tall warrior with deep scars across his face, his eyes cold and calculating. "This," the king said, gesturing toward Alex, "is the human who has passed the trials and sealed the bond with my daughter." The scarred warrior stepped forward. "He may have survived the tests, but survival does not make him one of us. He is still soft, still human." A murmur of agreement passed through several council members. Alex kept his voice calm. "I didn't come here to prove I'm better than anyone. I just didn't want to let Lyra be handed over to someone she didn't choose." The scarred warrior's lip curled. "Then fight me now. If you win, I will accept you. If you lose, the bond will be dissolved." Lyra stepped forward sharply. "That is not the law." "It is the old law," the warrior replied, his eyes never leaving Alex, "and the old law still stands." The king's gaze shifted to Alex. "Do you accept?" Alex looked at Lyra, who shook her head slightly. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. He gave her a faint smile. "Yeah, I think I do." The council chamber cleared quickly, leaving only the king, the council members, and a ring of space in the center. The scarred warrior drew two short blades, their edges glowing faintly. He tossed one toward Alex, the blade clattering at his feet. Alex picked it up, testing its weight. "Not exactly my style," he said, gripping it awkwardly. The warrior didn't wait. He came in fast, his strikes precise and brutal. Alex barely managed to block the first two blows, the shock running up his arm. He backed away, using the space to think, his mind racing for an advantage. The warrior feinted left, then spun, the second blade slicing toward Alex's side. Alex twisted just enough for it to pass by, then stepped in close, jamming his shoulder into the warrior's chest. The alien barely moved from the impact, but it gave Alex a second to grab the warrior's wrist and twist. The blade clattered to the floor. The warrior snarled, grabbing Alex by the collar and shoving him back. Alex stumbled but caught himself, his grip tightening on the remaining weapon. He remembered Lyra's words from before, "Don't fight like them. Fight like you." Instead of trying to match the warrior's strength, Alex used speed. He ducked low, slashing at the warrior's leg armor, not to injure, but to force him to shift his stance. The warrior growled and swung downward, but Alex sidestepped and hooked his foot behind the alien's knee. The warrior fell to one knee, his balance broken for just an instant. Alex pressed the blade lightly to the side of the warrior's neck. The crowd was silent. The warrior's eyes burned with fury, but he didn't move. Slowly, he reached up and pushed the blade away. "You are lucky," he said. Alex lowered the weapon. "No," he replied, breathing hard. "I'm just not stupid enough to fight you at your game." The king rose from his throne. "It is done. He has defended his bond before the council. From this day, no one may challenge it." The council murmured in acceptance, though some faces still showed resentment. Lyra stepped to Alex's side, her hand brushing against his for just a moment. "You realize you've just made enemies," she whispered. Alex glanced at the scarred warrior, who was watching him with a look that promised this wasn't over. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I noticed." As they left the chamber, the drums outside began again, but this time the rhythm was slower, heavier, almost like a warning. That night, the air in the fortress felt heavier than usual. The halls were quiet, but Alex could sense the tension in the way guards stood a little straighter, their eyes scanning every shadow. Lyra walked beside him, her steps quick and silent. "You're not telling me something," Alex said. Her ears twitched. "The council accepted you because my father commanded it, but there are still those who want you gone. They may not challenge you openly now, but—" She glanced toward a dark corner where a pair of cloaked figures disappeared. "They will find another way." They reached his quarters, but when Lyra opened the door, she froze. Inside, the room had been ransacked. Sheets torn, furniture overturned, and deep claw marks carved into the walls. On the bed lay a single strip of crimson cloth, the same color as the scarred warrior's clan. Alex picked it up, turning it over in his hand. "Subtle." "It's a warning," Lyra said, her voice low. "They'll strike soon." Before Alex could reply, a horn sounded from somewhere deep in the fortress. The sound was sharp, urgent, and quickly followed by shouts. Lyra's eyes widened. Intruders! They ran through the corridors, following the growing noise until they reached the outer gates. The heavy metal doors were dented inward, glowing faintly where something had burned through. Smoke drifted into the hall, carrying the scent of scorched metal. A group of armored warriors burst inside, their faces hidden behind dark visors. They moved fast, cutting down guards with brutal precision. At their head was the scarred warrior, his blades gleaming in the firelight. Alex felt the mark on his hand pulse, as if it knew the danger. Without thinking, he grabbed a fallen guard's spear. Lyra drew her own curved blade, stepping in front of him. "You shouldn't be here," the scarred warrior called out. "You had your chance to leave." "And you had your chance to shut up," Alex replied. The warrior charged. Lyra met him head-on, their blades clashing in a shower of sparks. Alex fought off two of the armored soldiers, relying on speed rather than strength. He ducked under a strike, jabbing the spear's butt into one soldier's chest, then spun to knock another off balance. The scarred warrior was stronger and faster than before, his movements fueled by rage. He shoved Lyra back and turned toward Alex, swinging both blades in a deadly crosscut. Alex barely raised the spear in time, the impact jolting through his arms. Lyra lunged in from the side, her blade slicing across the warrior's armor. He snarled and grabbed her by the arm, throwing her hard against the wall. Alex's chest tightened as he saw her slump to the ground, dazed. The mark on his hand burned so fiercely it felt like fire under his skin. He tightened his grip on the spear and stepped between her and the warrior. "You'll have to go through me," he said. The warrior's eyes narrowed. "Gladly." They clashed, the sound of steel and energy ringing in the air. Alex knew he couldn't match the warrior's raw power, so he focused on movement, sidestepping, ducking, forcing his enemy to waste strength on wide, heavy strikes. Each time the warrior overextended, Alex jabbed or struck with the spear's butt, chipping away at his balance. Finally, as the warrior swung high, Alex drove the spear low, hooking it behind the alien's ankle and yanking hard. The warrior crashed to the ground, his blades clattering away. Before he could rise, Alex planted the spear point at his throat. "It's over." The warrior's gaze shifted past Alex to Lyra, who was back on her feet, her blade ready. Something flickered in his expression, hatred, yes, but also grudging respect. Slowly, he raised his hands in surrender. The remaining intruders backed toward the gate, dragging their wounded with them. The fortress guards closed in, weapons drawn, but the king's voice boomed from the upper balcony. "Let them go." The warriors retreated into the night. Silence settled over the hall, broken only by the crackle of burning torches. The king descended the steps, his eyes moving from the scarred warrior to Alex. "You have defended my daughter not once, but twice. You have fought my enemies as if they were your own. There is no greater proof of your place here." Lyra stepped closer to Alex, her tail curling slightly toward him. "I told you they'd try something." "Yeah," Alex said, breathing hard, "but I didn't think they'd redecorate my room in the process." She gave a small smile, though her eyes still held concern. "This won't be the last time." Alex glanced down at the glowing bond mark on his hand. It no longer just burned, it felt alive, steady, like it was part of him. He looked at Lyra, then at the king, and knew leaving was no longer an option. Whatever came next, he was in it for good.